This is the most unexpected thing ever. I got this farm under contract. There was 2 deer, 1 giant on camera. And there was 100 acres of standing beans. And I came up and bow hunted once. And I laid out these beans. I brought this blind up here. I put some cell cameras out. And my whole goal was to hope that late season I could get a shot at this deer. We're up here kind of because we were up here marking timber today. And was going to hopefully get Jesse on one of these other deer. And we're sitting here and out walks the freaking giant. I mean, people, there is a giant. And when I say giant, I mean a freaking giant in this field right now.
We're going to bring you back to December of 2019 when we bought a farm and very quickly realized that there was a special giant deer living on it. We documented everything we did to set this farm up and kind of our story with this deer. And at the end of the video, we're going to come back and just kind of summarize the way it played out. My first time on the farm, I came back here and I did a hanging hunt. Had a nice 140-something inch deer come right to bow range from way down the field. That last night was kind of a Hail Mary. Hadn't had pictures on my cell cameras. Last night's season, I was up in the area, so just came and sat in the box blind. Sure enough, that sucker come off of this hill, off of this point into this field, and just videoed him last hour of the deer season. So I was already sitting there in the blind, I knew that it was game on now. Next season started right now. Okay, so this is this little point that comes out in the field here. The November pictures of this big deer were in the woods on the logging road about 60 yards up from here. All the trail cam pictures we had of him late season were within 50 yards of this point. The sighting, he came down off of the hill that last night of the season when we were hunting, right behind us here. And then he came around this bend when he walked right around this bend and disappeared. So everything has been going on around this little point in the field. I think that a lot of that stems from the big internal south-facing point in this woodlot is right here. We want to make the plot here because he already wants to be here, and in the future, other mature bucks that call this home are going to use this terrain in the same way. Therefore, this is always going to be a spot they want to be. My thoughts are we bring the box blind down here and put the box right here and use this brush as a screen to go up the ladder into the blind. Yeah. I like keeping the blind down here low just because it contains scent a little bit better. I think you can get away with a little bit more visually. You know, you're low and it'll help out. And I think we just need to get in here and shape this sucker out and carve out a little piece so we can put a little green plot up there and then have standing food down here. And then the loggers are gonna take tops and trees and they're gonna make a brush line from here all the way down, because ultimately, if you hunt here, there's gonna be deer that come out downwind. So we're gonna block them all the way off to where our bench road comes out into the bottom. I don't think it needs to be huge. I think the whole thing just kind of needs to be in bow range, right?
Yeah, it just needs to be a little green staging area before they move into the standing crop. This is kind of the deer's view as they're gonna come down this hill and hit this plot. They're gonna stand here, look out into the open, look out in the food plot, kind of assess things before they step out. That's why we picked that tree with the big Y in it. That has the most cover, the most back cover, so that the deer doesn't pick out your movement or isn't able to silhouette you against the lighter crop field.
When Toby first walked the farm, he told me about this trail, this interior bench trail, and how tore up it was with scrapes and stuff. Right here in this area, this is where the main point comes off the hill and the trail rounds the bend. There's a huge scrape right here. Right down here was the camera that we had the video and pictures of this big deer in November. They're gonna be cruising this road on those thermals in the evenings, and they're gonna be rolling down this hill where they can scent check this whole hillside.
It's just the right distance that they can cruise this and visually check down there for deer. and then use this as a thermals and a scent check where they can't see up in there. So I mean, this road could not be in a better place.
We got his left side. Makes perfect sense based off of where he was coming out in the field back in the winter. Yeah. So yesterday when I found this antler, this is the first place I came. It's in line from where all the sightings and trail cams and stuff were of this deer. And this is the biggest point in the woodlot. It extends the furthest towards the field. There's several flats on the point as you go up the hill. So in my mind, I picture him bedding up there. You know, a lot of times we worry less about learning a farm and we concentrate more on learning a deer that's on the farm, and the deer will generally teach you the farm, and that helps us with our layout. You can see these little feeder ridges. You can't even see them on the topo map, but there's one here and there's some on the other side, and they all meet up here at the top of this main ridge that's gonna go out to our next food plot, which is what a lot of the layout is based off of. But there's so much holding power in here. As awesome as all this sign is, and how bad you think it'd be awesome to hang a stand in here, this whole center of the farm is should just never be, you never need to come in here. Perfect south-facing structure, thick. It's just got everything the deer would want to use. At the bottom of this, we're gonna have that food plot down there, and at the top, we're gonna have a big food plot. And it's all laid out. I mean, when he gets up from bedding here, he or whatever deer gets up from bedding on one of these like 4 ridges, they're going to food one way or the other, and we have a strategic food source on each side of this. This is his bedroom right here. I mean, look at this.
Look at that right there, kicked out. Look at this right here, kicked out.
Yeah, bed, 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 huge bed, huge bed. And look at the rub on the backside of this cedar.
Yeah, all he does is sleep here all day long, gets up, beats the crap out of that tree, moves over there when the sun changes angles, stands up, beats the crap out of the tree, and he goes down there and eats. You can even see the knee marks where that deer was laying like this is imprinted in the ground. There's his back leg right there, that horseshoe. It's pretty cool. It's kind of like what mule deer do. They kick out a big pit like this and they just come back to the same place every day. And these are all in different places. This could all seriously be one deer, but as the sun comes and does this throughout the day, the warm spots change. So they get up and they move 5 yards to follow the light around. That's a pretty cool spot.
See my blue paint, the edge of the plot? We're basically taking this plot and we're shaping it like a big fan or like an hourglass like this. And we're gonna catch as many of these big south-facing point bedding areas as possible. We're gonna bring them deer up, and then through the wall system, we're gonna squeeze them through a bottleneck that go as they transition out to the food. And then on the other side of the bottleneck, our plot is gonna open up again just so we get the tonnage here to make it last. This is all gonna be standing beans. We're gonna plant it 3 times the seeding rate as like a farmer, and hopefully that'll make it last between that and the 2 acres. And then in bow range from our key funnel there in the center, we're gonna overseed rye, winter rye, and probably turnips, maybe some radishes as soon as those beans yellow down. So we're gonna have that congregation point of does right there in front of the blind in bow range. So we're at the southeast end of our wall here up top. And right off this side of it is a little bench in bow range, 20 yards. There's a natural spring right there. And then there's another one right over there. They're cool. They're literally running water out of that one over there. So we're gonna come in here and we're gonna we're gonna put in a galvanized tank, and we're gonna let that thing fill up with fresh water all the time. It'll be in bow range right here. And we're way up high here, you know, so this is gonna be the only water around.
This is a new one for us here.
This is something you can't really...
You can't replicate that.
That's
a freshwater spring. I mean, it's running like crazy.
I've been on a lot of ground. I've seen some springs, some like just wet spots on hillsides and stuff, but I'd never seen one like that. When I hunted the first night, I hang and hunted right there. The reason I did was because there was just a little cut through four-wheeler trail that went from beans to the neighbor's corn. Now looking at this, we're gonna have a wall from right here at the corner all the way down to our box spine. We're gonna have our main east side access trail coming down the hill and dumping out right here onto the bench trail, which runs the length of the farm. So deer are gonna come off of that hill to this food. They're either gotta come out by the box spine food plot down there, or they're gonna squeeze down and take this road all the way out and come into here. Cruising bucks are gonna cruise that bench road and they're gonna funnel around this point. It takes out this whole probability nightmare, which we saw this deer season, of deer just coming off of the hill wherever they feel like it. And that sucker there is begging for a ladder stand or something. Dang, and you could see him coming too, down that road. So we've created a master trail system in here, which is basically a huge loop. We've got one side of the trail going up to the top as far to the east as possible, and we've got the other one as far to the west as possible. And that way we do put the least amount of pressure on the farm in the center. And also, west winds use this end, east winds use the west side.
We're taking a select cut of timber out of here to use that money to do the road systems of food plots, build the walls, pinch points. Your timber that exists on your property is an asset to you. And how you choose to use it is up to you, and there's many different options. You can take it off like we are here and use it for the enhancements, put it into a cabin or a pond project, or use it to thicken up habitat. I mean, there's just several ways that you can utilize the timber that's on your property to help you achieve your goal.
I think of it as taking the natural resource on the farm and essentially moving it into another aspect of your farm. Today is phase 2 of the development project. Got a lot going on. We got 2 crawler dozers here, putting in our food plots, finishing this wall funnel, and we're gonna be hanging some stands throughout the day, checking in on them, making sure the walls and everything's going good, and make a lot of progress today. This is just a killer spot. Both the main trails on the east side of the farm here dump into the bean field right here behind me. We got the end of our funnel wall we created, comes here about 25 yards from that stand. There's an old trail that connected the 2 fields. I'm gonna have them push all these trees behind me out, block that trail, come up here and push some stuff out, make the path of least resistance around this point where the deer are naturally gonna wanna funnel around the point anyway. Put them exactly where you want them, 20 yards in front or 20 yards to the side here. We knew we wanted this plot here. We know we want the blind right there in a specific spot, and our next huntable tree on the edge was a little further than we would want it. So in other words, without these walls here, you'd have a 100-yard opening for these deer to come out. So we brought the walls in, away from each hunting spot, to where that wall, the end of that wall, is within bow range of that blind, and this wall that comes this way, the end of it, is within bow range of that tree. So we just moved the blind into the position and climbed up here. I'll probably have them push out a little bit more here to gain some more green space, but keep it in bow range. This stand is a case of right spot, wrong tree. The tree was pretty good, but I don't know if it's just the openness or what, but it fell a little bit out exposed. So I brought some cedars in, ratcheted them in here for back cover. So these walls, they're instant funnel, but also a lot of the trees we took out were within the first 20 or 30 yards to make the wall. And what that'll do is let a lot of sunlight in from the south here. And over time, it'll regenerate as you enter and exit the farm. You'll have a natural barrier between you and these deer up here in the woods. So there's a lot of benefits to these walls. We hung a lock on for east winds. We put up our box blind for west winds. And then we put up this stand in here for when it hits the fan and it's time to dive in all day. What's cool about this is this whole spot is kind of built. There's 3 stands in here. And you can come in here and lay off a lot of your farm and just leave it a sanctuary, and you should be able to shoot just about any buck calling this his core right here in this little playground. We're gonna head up top now and start on the big internal standing food plot. I'm excited about that. It's gonna be ridiculous up there. So as is usually the case as we start developing, ideas come about, when they took this food plot out down here, they needed to push the debris somewhere, so we started making a wall coming this way to the west. Well, before you know it, we were most of the way down here to this barn and grass area, so I'm like, you know what? Keep coming with the trail, and we'll keep on making the wall with the debris all the way to this little gray shed. The trail dumps out. This gray shed here, I'm gonna have them come knock these trees out, knock that high spot off, take this tree out, and then we'll have another food plot location. And I think it's kind of cool. These two barns will make the perfect gap, and we'll be able to cut holes in and have old barn ground blinds right here at the end of this wall in this deadly gap on another little green source. So I just thought it was pretty cool, so we decided to do it. It's pretty wild that you can do this kind of human activity, and these big deer like that, he calls this home. We've seen it over and over again that they just come right back in. It's very hard to run those big mature deer out of their core. It's easy to make them hard to hunt and nocturnal, but it's hard to run them out. On these farms, we make it a priority to have at least one big standing food source per 150 acres or so. So since this farm is 64 acres, we decided to put in a 2-acre plot up here. We like to do at least 2 acres so that it survives the grazing. And we got it laid out to where this wall comes across and the wall over there comes across, and they meet. So all these points off the back side of this, no matter what one deer are bedded on, when they come up here, as they filter out to the big primary food out, they'll squeeze through that opening that we've got. We'll have a box blind here and a ladder stand on the other side. So last time we were here, we planted this bean field, and these deer are smoking this end where they're funneling in around the wall here. But we made it this size so we had the tonnage here, and it looks like that plan is kind of paying off. They get thicker as you go that way, so I think we'll at least have a stand enough to get us some late season hunting here. One of our stands is right here. Shoot the cove, travel corridor on this trail, major travel corridor. The tank is gonna sit right down here on this flat spot. So the south edge of this farm does have some tillable acreage that you could work something out with the neighbor for some cash rent, but we're gonna plant our own corn. We're gonna leave it standing so we got some food, and then it'll also give us a nice wall to walk behind for getting in and out of this farm. All right, it's time to get up in this blind and check out the view that we've been planning and scheming and dreaming. So we're having these blinds built with just too many little details. We're getting missed with some of these blind companies that we were buying from, and these things are set tight. This can be important up here in October when we come into this blind. Even when we have good winds, this hill is so steep. Thermals almost every night are going to overpower the wind, and they're going to turn and go that way. So this is going to be key for early season up here. The whole spot came together perfect. It's unreal. So I came up here and pulled the cards, and all these, I mean, the deer were all back, all the big deer. And then I got to that last card, and I was click, 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 click. And I'm like, what is that? I see this rat. I'm like, how is there another big deer? And lifted his head up, and I was like, there he is. He's giant. I mean, he's giant, typical. We watched the deer the whole summer, and one of the coolest things about watching that deer is because we had manipulated this edge, we had really high, like, I mean, when he went from the hill to the field, we basically got his picture because he could only kind of squeeze through these certain spots. You know, this is a summer range. He was there all summer like clockwork. And as we got into September, his time there just started dwindling and dwindling. By season, I think I got one nighttime picture on the far, far end of the farm come October. But the previous year, we have realtor friends that ran cameras along the river on these duck clubs, and we knew that he was over there in November the year before. We got some more intel that almost to the date he was back over on one of the duck clubs. A guy had an encounter with him. And then throughout the season, I caught wind from some duck hunters and stuff that he was basically over in these duck clubs just chasing does, and he spent the year over there. I hunted pretty hard knowing that my chances were fairly slim with as many cameras I had around and him not being back on the farm. The last night of deer season, boom, showed up walking right down the edge. He's just one of these deer that his range just shifted mega during the rut. In the spring of 2021, had somebody that was really wanting to buy the farm. It was where they wanted to be, it was the size they wanted. They saw some of our videos on the farm. They really wanted the farm, and they twisted my arm just hard enough. I told Toby, I was like, well, I guess I'll compromise. If I can hunt October, I'll sell it and hand it over to them November. He was back in the summer again. I would say not quite as much, but he was definitely back. I decided to just watch the cameras, and he didn't show up. I never even stepped foot on there during deer season, and passed the torch over to the new owners. They did not get a picture of him that entire deer season. All next summer, and then randomly in September of 2022, the new owner sent me a picture of that deer just standing there in daylight at the camera, right where he was the last couple years before that, just mega giant. Rumor is he was killed opening morning. Don't know where and don't know who, but rumor is he was killed opening morning of the 2022 deer season. If he was just one of those deer that had a personality where he kind of stayed put, you know, his core, but he was a wanderer. And you know, I had really high hopes going into the first season because we did have a couple pictures from the November before. That first year, that entire field was standing beans when we bought it. So that kind of could have been a little bit of an illusion, you know, because obviously when you have a 100-acre standing bean field in the south-facing hillside, it's gonna be pretty powerful. I still feel like our strategy, I feel like everything we did was as much as we could have done. He used our spots we built. You know, and a deer doesn't have the ability to think, oh, deer season's here, I better leave now. He just one of those deer that had a fall range, it was elsewhere. Be sure to come back and check out the next video. We're gonna take you along 2021 as we chase another big, giant deer. We found this deer, and we're gonna show you kind of how we use some of the same, you know, strategies we do on our private farms on a piece that we just had permission on.